I faked post-wedding amnesia to avoid marriage, but what I learned in those lost weeks ruined everything. The plan seemed foolproof. Trip on the church steps, hit my head, and wake up with convenient memory loss. Anything to avoid marrying Kieran, the man my parents chose because of his family's pharmaceutical empire. Not because I loved him. What I didn't foresee was how much people reveal when they think you don't remember anything. She's finally become manageable, Kieran whispered outside my room. No more stubbornness. The doctor says trauma can completely change a person's personality. I kept my eyes closed, remaining still as my mind raced. Perfect timing, my mother's voice said. Probate protections kick in next month, once she's declared mentally incompetent. You'll control both her trust fund and her pharmaceutical patents. Patents? What patents? I was a 22-year-old college dropout who had never invented anything. For 3 weeks, I played the role of a confused bride, secretly investigating. During physical therapy, I snuck into offices and searched databases. What I discovered disgusted me. My late grandfather had left more than just money. He had left behind 17 pharmaceutical patents worth over $40 million, patents that would have been returned to my parents if I had been declared incompetent. The marriage wasn't about love. It was about stealing my inheritance. But the most horrific revelation was Kieran's unlocked phone. Text messages dating back months revealed detailed planning between him, my parents, and their family doctor, who instructed him to gradually introduce me to psychotropic medication before the wedding. Dizziness, memory lapses, anxiety attacks that made everyone worry about my mental health. None of this was natural. They systematically poisoned me to create a case of incompetence. The lawyers have confirmed everything, my father said during a private call. Once the neurologist signs off on the irreversible brain damage, we can commit her. Kieran will get the patents. We'll get our share. She'll disappear. That night, I made my move. While Kieran slept next to my bed, I photographed every message and found the pill bottles in his jacket. The next morning, I smiled brightly at my loving husband. Kieran, darling, I remember everything. His face turned pale. Everything. Every conversation, every message about stealing my inheritance, every pill you slipped into my food. I picked up his phone and played the recording of the conversation about my tragic accident. Kieran rushed to the device, but I was already pressing the nurse call button. "What have you done?" he hissed. "What you should expect from someone who holds 17 pharmaceutical patents. I called the FBI yesterday." While security held my panicked husband back, he screamed, "You can't prove the drugs came from me." I pulled out the vials. "Your fingerprints are all over the place. Besides, the hospital tested my blood." But his agents led him away. Kieran turned with a chilling smile. "You think you've won? Check your grandfather's real will. The one your parents kept hidden." My heart stopped. "What are you talking about?" "There's a reason they were so desperate to marry you off before your 23rd birthday next month. Patents aren't real treasure." I stared at the empty doorway long after he was dragged away. A nurse asked if I needed anything, but I couldn't hear her over the sound of blood rushing in my ears. What did he mean by real treasure? What could possibly be worth more than $40 million in pharmaceutical patents? My parents arrived an hour later, their faces masks of worry and confusion. "Darling, what do you mean Kieran's been arrested?" my mother asked, settling into the bedside chair she'd occupied for weeks. "The police called us, but it doesn't make sense." I studied their faces. The same faces that just a few days earlier had whispered about my placement in the clinic. "I remember," I said simply. "That's it." My father's briefcase fell to the floor with a clatter. My mother's hand flew to her throat. The drugs, the planning, the inheritance theft. All of it. "Honey, you're still confused," my mother said, but her voice was shaking. "The accident?" "There was no accident." I interrupted her. "I faked amnesia so I could get married. But you know what? I'm glad I did it because it helped me understand the kind of people who raised me." The color drained from my father's face. "You can't prove anything." "Actually, I can. The FBI has Kieran's phone with all your text messages. They have pill bottles with his fingerprints on them. They have blood tests showing I was systematically poisoned." My parents exchanged a look that confirmed everything. But before they take you, I continued, I want to know about my grandfather's real will. My mother winced as if I'd struck her. Kieran mentioned it right before he was arrested. He said patents weren't real treasure, that there was a reason you were so desperate to marry me off before my 23rd birthday. I don't know what you're talking about, my father said, but sweat was beading on his forehead. Try again. They sat in silence for a full minute. Finally, my mother broke the silence. Your grandfather was eccentric, she whispered. The will. There were conditions we considered too ridiculous to fulfill. What conditions? My father loosened his tie. He left instructions that on your 23rd birthday, you were to receive the location of his private collection. A private collection of what? Another pause. Then Mom spoke, her voice barely audible. Over $200 million worth of art. The room spun. What? Your grandfather spent 60 years secretly collecting masterpieces, Dad said. Paintings, sculptures, artifacts. He had them appraised shortly before his death. The collection is worth more than our entire pharmaceutical business. And you were going to steal that too? We were protecting you, Mom insisted. You were 22. Irresponsible. What would you do with such wealth? Your grandfather's conditions were impossible. What conditions? Dad pulled out his phone, scrolled through his files, and showed me a document. You were supposed to be unmarried by your 23rd birthday. You had to demonstrate financial independence for at least 1 year, and you had to pass a psychological evaluation proving you were of sound mind. I stared at the screen, the pieces of the puzzle falling into place. So you arranged the marriage to make me ineligible. You drugged me to make me look mentally unstable, and you controlled my money to prevent financial independence. They said nothing. Where is this collection? We don't know, Mom said. The location is sealed in a safe at Grandpa's law firm. Only you can access it on your birthday, after meeting all the requirements. Which law firm? Sterling Whitmore and Associates, downtown. I'd never heard of them, but that didn't matter anymore. Go away, I said. Honey. Mom reached out to take my hand. Go away. They grabbed their things and rushed for the door. Just before they left, Dad turned around. The FBI will want to take your statement about Kieran, he said. But remember, we're still your parents. We still love you. No, I said. Parents don't drug their kids. Parents don't steal their inheritance. Parents don't try to put them in rehab to steal their money. After they left, I called the only person I could trust, my best friend Zara, who had tried to talk me out of the marriage from the start. Oh my God, she breathed when I explained everything. Are you okay? Do you need help getting out of here? Actually, yes. Can you help me with something that might be illegal? Always. 2 hours later, Zara arrived with a wheelchair, civilian clothes, and a fake discharge slip she'd somehow managed to obtain. My cousin works in medical records, she explained, wheeling me toward the elevator. She owed me a favor. We made it to the parking lot without incident. On the way downtown, I told her about my grandfather's collection. 200 million? Zara whistled. Your family is crazy to try to steal that. The question is, what now? I need to remain single, financially independent, and mentally stable for 3 more weeks. Well, the single part is easy since your husband is in jail. The financial independence might be more difficult. Do you have access to your money? I checked my phone. My bank accounts have been frozen, probably by my parents. No, but I have an idea. We drove to Kieran's apartment, a luxurious penthouse bought with his pharmaceutical money. Using the spare key he'd given me during our engagement, we entered. This isn't right, Zara whispered as we rummaged through his things. He tried to steal my inheritance and put me in a clinic. I think taking some wedding gifts is only fair. In his walk-in closet, I found the jewelry box containing the diamond necklace he'd given me as an engagement gift. The appraisal showed it was worth $35,000. That should cover 3 weeks' expenses, I said, pocketing it. But as we prepared to leave, I noticed something strange. Kieran's desk drawer was slightly open, and inside I saw the edge of a document. Wait, I said to Zara, pulling out the paper. It was a medical report from Dr. Harrison Vance, the family doctor who helped drug me. But it wasn't about me. It was about my grandfather. According to the report, my grandfather suffered from early-stage dementia in his later years. The document suggested his mental state was questionable when he wrote his will. They were going to contest the will, I said, showing Zara the report. They were going to claim my grandfather wasn't mentally competent when he made it. They can do that? If they have medical evidence, maybe, but look at the date. Zara squinted at the paper. This report was written 3 months after your grandfather's death. Exactly. It's a fake. I took a photo of the document and sent it to my phone. It was proof of an even deeper conspiracy. We left Kieran's apartment and drove to a jewelry store in the art district. The owner, an elderly woman named Dellen, examined my engagement necklace through a magnifying glass. $35,000. That's it, she said, but I can offer you $25,000 for immediate cash. Done. With money in hand, Zara and I found a small hotel where I checked in under a false name. For the first time in weeks, I felt truly alone with my thoughts. My phone rang from an unknown number. The FBI wants to meet tomorrow at 2 p.m. Federal Building downtown. Agent Rodriguez, I showed Zara the message. They probably want your testimony against Kieran and your parents, she said. That could be good. If they build a case, you'll have a legal defense. But I was worried about something else. What if my parents try to have me declared mentally incompetent before my birthday? They could file a motion in court claiming the amnesia has impaired your judgment. With what evidence? You just exposed their entire conspiracy. They're desperate, and desperate people do stupid things. I was right to worry. The next morning, Zara woke me with breaking news. Your parents just filed for emergency guardianship, she said, handing me her phone. It's all over the local news. I read the headline. ARS pharmacist's parents seek guardianship after head injury on wedding day. The article portrayed me as a tragic figure whose head injury triggered paranoid delusions about being drugged. It quoted family sources claiming that I made false accusations against my devoted husband and was clearly incapable of managing my inheritance. They're trying to control the narrative, I said, to make me crazy before I can prove they're criminals. The hearing is scheduled for next week. Are you ready? I was already getting dressed. I need to meet with this FBI agent first, and then go to Sterling Whitmore and Associates. Why a law firm? You can't claim the inheritance for another 3 weeks. No, but I can find out more about my grandfather's collection. Maybe there's something that will help me fight this guardianship petition. The meeting with the FBI was surreal. Agent Rodriguez, a serious woman in her 40s, laid out the case against Kieran and my parents like she was reading a grocery list. Conspiracy to commit fraud, elder abuse, well, in this case, adult child abuse, financial exploitation, possibly attempted murder, depending on what those drugs could do to you over the long term. What do you need from me? Your statement, medical records, any additional evidence you might have. I showed her the fake medical report about my grandfather. Agent Rodriguez studied it carefully. This could be crucial. This demonstrates a deliberate attempt to contest the will on false grounds. Where did you find this? In Kieran's apartment. You broke into his apartment. I used the key he gave me. We were married. She smiled grimly. Technically, it's legal. This document will greatly assist our case. What about the guardianship petition? This is a civil matter, not a criminal one, but our investigation should confirm your competence. The fact that you uncovered this conspiracy demonstrates clear mental acuity. After meeting with the FBI, Zara and I drove to the law firm of Sterling Whitmore and Associates. The building was old but elegant, filled with dark wood and leather-bound books. The receptionist, a woman in her 60s, looked up when I introduced myself. Ms. Whitmore will want to see you immediately, she said, her eyes wide. She's been expecting this call for months. Helena Whitmore was a sharp-eyed woman in her 70s, moving with the energy of someone half her age. She led us into a conference room hung with oil paintings. I was your grandfather's lawyer for 30 years, she began. And I watched with great interest your family's attempts to circumvent his will. Do you know about pharmaceutical patents? Oh, my dear, patents were just an appetizer. Your grandfather knew your parents would try to steal them, so he made them easily traceable. He wanted you to discover their greed before you inherited the real treasure, an art collection, among other things. She pulled out a thick folder. Your grandfather was much more than a pharmaceutical entrepreneur. He was a collector, an investor, and, most importantly, a planner. She opened the folder and spread the documents on the table. The art collection is worth $200 million, as your parents discovered, but it's stored in a climate-controlled warehouse in Switzerland. What they don't know is the wine collection worth $50 million, the rare book collection worth $30 million, or the technology patents he filed under various corporate names worth another $100 million. I felt dizzy. How much in total? About $400 million. Zara grabbed my hand to steady me. But here's what's really brilliant, Miss Whitmore continued. Your grandfather suspected your parents might try to have you declared incompetent, so he put in place protections. She pulled out another document. If anyone tries to challenge your inheritance or have you declared incompetent, the entire estate will immediately go to charity. Your parents will get nothing. They don't know that. They know about the original will, which only mentioned patents and art. They never saw the additional conditions your grandfather added in recent years. What about the guardianship petition they filed? Miss Whitmore's smile was sharp. They just activated the charitable provision. The moment they filed that petition, they renounced any claim to your grandfather's inheritance. So, I get everything if I meet the original conditions. Yes, unmarried on your 23rd birthday, financially independent for 1 year, and mentally competent. I've only been financially independent for 2 days. Actually, you've been financially independent since you were 18. She showed me bank statements I'd never seen. Your grandfather set up a trust fund that paid you a monthly allowance. Your parents intercepted the payments and deposited them into an account they controlled. But legally, you were financially independent. They simply stole from you for 4 years. 4 years, $2,000 a month plus interest. They owe you about $100,000. Can I access those funds now? It's all settled. She handed me a debit card. The account is unlocked and in your name only. I stared at the card, stunned by everything I was learning. There's one more thing, Ms. Whitmore said softly. Your grandfather left you a letter. He asked me to give it to you when you turned 23. But given recent circumstances, she handed me a sealed envelope with my name written in my grandfather's familiar handwriting. I opened it with trembling fingers. My dear granddaughter, the letter began. If you are reading this, it means you have discovered the true nature of your parents. I am sorry you had to learn this painful truth, but I had hoped that preparing for it would make you stronger. I wiped away the tears and continued reading. I knew they would try to deceive you. I knew they would try to control you. That is why I built so many protections into your inheritance. But money is not the real gift I am leaving you. The real gift is freedom. Freedom from people who would use you. Freedom from a family who sees you as a commodity. The freedom to create the life you choose, not the life they choose for you. You are braver and stronger than you think. Trust yourself and remember you owe them nothing. It was signed, Love, Grandpa Theodore. I sat in silence for a few minutes, processing everything. What now? I finally asked Miss Whitmore. Now you get ready for your 23rd birthday. The guardianship hearing will likely be canceled once the judge learns of the criminal charges against your parents. And in 3 weeks, you will officially be one of the richest young women in the country. What about Kieran? Is he facing serious charges? Given the evidence, I expect him to get at least 10 years. Conspiracy, fraud, poisoning without consent. These are serious federal crimes. As Zara and I left the law firm, my phone rang. It was my mother. Honey, we need to talk, she said, her voice tense. Can you meet us for dinner? Why would I do that? Because we are your family, and no matter what, we love you. You filed a guardianship petition this morning. You are trying to declare me mentally incompetent. A pause. That was a mistake. We can revoke it. Too late. I already know about the charitable provision in Grandpa's will. The line went silent. You activated it when you filed the petition. I continued. You just renounced any claim to Grandpa's estate. That's not. You don't understand the entire situation. I understand perfectly. You stole my monthly allowance for 4 years. You arranged a marriage to steal my inheritance. You tried to have me declared incompetent. And when that failed, you tried to have me legally declared incompetent. We were protecting you from what? Financial security, freedom, happiness, making mistakes with more money than you can handle. The only mistake I made was trusting you. I hung up. That evening, Zara and I celebrated at an expensive restaurant, which I could now afford thanks to my unlocked trust fund. So, what's the plan for the next 3 weeks? She asked over champagne. Stay single. Easy since Kieran's in jail. Stay financially independent. Also easy now. And prove I'm mentally competent. That last part can be tricky with a guardianship petition. Actually, I have an idea about that. The next morning, I hired the best lawyer in town, Jonathan Fletcher, known for handling high-profile competency cases. He looked at my situation with professional interest. Your parents' petition is weak, he said after reviewing the documents. They cite a head injury causing paranoid delusions, but you just uncovered a real conspiracy with documented evidence. That's the opposite of delusions. When is the hearing? Tuesday, but I don't think it will go to trial. Once the judge sees the FBI evidence, he'll likely deny the petition. And if he doesn't, we'll present testimony from FBI agents, hospital medical staff who witnessed your sanity, and experts who can attest to your mental acuity. I left Fletcher's office with cautious optimism. But that afternoon, my confidence was shattered by an unexpected visit. Dr. Harrison Vance, the family doctor who helped drug me, showed up at the door of my hotel room. We need to talk, he said. I held the latch. I have nothing to say to you, and you shouldn't be here. Your parents are desperate, he said through the crack. They're planning something that will harm you more than drugs ever could. Despite my better judgment, I was curious. What are you talking about? They found out about your grandfather's real assets. Real estate worth millions that wasn't mentioned in any of his wills. What kind of real estate? A vineyard in Napa, a ranch in Montana, commercial buildings in 3 towns. Your grandfather held them under corporate names to avoid taxes. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm tired of being their accomplice, and because they plan to forge documents showing they were transferred to him before his death. I stared at him through the crack in the door. Why should I believe you? Because I have the original transfer documents. Your grandfather left them with me for safekeeping, along with instructions to give them to you on your 23rd birthday. He held up the manila envelope. The total value of the properties is approximately $60 million. Your parents don't know I have these documents. They think they're hidden in a safe deposit box they can't access. Against my better judgment, I opened the door. Dr. Vance looked older than I remembered, with deep lines around his eyes and graying hair. He seemed genuinely remorseful as he handed me the envelope. Why did you help them drug me? I asked. Your father threatened to expose some mistakes I made years ago. Violations of my medical license that could have ruined me. I was weak. Those mistakes weren't accidents, were they? He shook his head. I falsified medical records for wealthy clients, hid evidence of prescription drug abuse, things that could have sent people to prison, and now you're trying to atone. I'm trying to do the one right thing before this destroys us all. Your parents plan to claim these properties were transferred to them months before your grandfather died. They're paying someone to backdate the documents. I opened the envelope and found deeds of ownership, corporate documents, and a letter from my grandfather explaining the holdings. He suspected they'd try something like this. Dr. Vance continued. That's why he gave me the originals. He said, if they ever try to falsify documents, I have to give you proof of their fraud. What's stopping me from turning you in to the FBI for drugging me? Nothing. I expect you to, but at least this way I'll be helping you first. After he left, I called Agent Rodriguez and arranged a meeting for the next morning. I also called Jonathan Fletcher to inform him of this new development. This is getting more complicated, Fletcher said, but it also makes your case stronger. Every new piece of evidence shows you're competent and your parents are criminals. The meeting with the FBI was productive. Agent Rodriguez showed particular interest in the forged real estate documents Dr. Vance had warned about. "We'll investigate immediately," she said. "If they're planning to backdate the transfers, we might catch them red-handed." "And what about Dr. Vance? He admitted to helping drug me. He'll face charges, but his cooperation will likely reduce his sentence. The big fish are your parents and Kieran. Speaking of Kieran, has he said anything useful?" "He's trying to cut a deal. He claims he was simply following your parents' instructions and didn't understand the full scope of their plan." "Do you believe him?" "I think he was a willing participant who got greedy, but your parents were certainly the masterminds." That afternoon, I decided to visit the properties Dr. Vance had told me about. The first was a commercial building in the city center that housed several restaurants and offices. The manager, a friendly woman named Patricia, was surprised to see me. "You must be Theodore's granddaughter," she said. "You look just like him. Are you here about the transfer documents your parents filed?" My blood ran cold. "What transfer documents?" "They had brought documents yesterday showing that the building had been transferred to them last year. They said they would begin managing it next month." "Could I see these documents?" Patricia pulled out a folder. The papers looked official, but the dates were clearly incorrect. "My grandfather was hospitalized during the period they claimed he signed the transfer." "It's a forgery," I told Patricia. "My grandfather was in intensive care on that date. He couldn't sign anything." "Should I contact the police?" "I'll look into it, but don't process any transfers until you hear from my lawyer." I visited other sites and found similar situations. My parents were busy filing forged transfer documents at each site. That evening, they called again. "We know you visited the sites," my father said without preamble. "You mean the sites you're trying to steal with forged documents? These transfers are legal." "Really? Because my grandfather was in a medically induced coma on the day you claim he signed them." Silence. "Here's what's going to happen," I continued. "You'll withdraw the guardianship petition. You'll return every cent you stole from my trust fund, and you'll surrender to the FBI. Or what? Or I'll publish the evidence of your forgery in the media, along with everything else. You could face decades in prison instead of a few years." "You're bluffing. Try it." I hung up and immediately sent copies of the forged documents to every major news outlet in town, along with a detailed explanation of my parents' fraud. By morning, the story was front-page news. Pharmaceutical family accused of inheritance fraud. The article detailed everything: the drugging, the sham marriage, the forged documents, the attempted theft of hundreds of millions in assets. My parents' photos were plastered across every website and newspaper. The backlash was swift. The stock price of my father's pharmaceutical company plummeted. Business partners distanced themselves. Social connections evaporated. My phone rang constantly with requests for interviews, but I ignored them all. I had more pressing matters. A custody hearing was scheduled for the next day, and I wanted to be prepared. That night, Zara helped me rehearse my testimony and review the evidence. We'd just ordered room service when someone knocked on the door. It was my younger brother, Connor, whom I hadn't seen since the wedding. He looked exhausted and scared. "Can we talk?" he asked. I let him in, though I kept Zara close. "Mom and Dad are going crazy," he said without preamble. "They're constantly fighting, drinking, and making increasingly desperate plans." "What plans?" "They want to claim that you kidnapped me and that your mental illness makes you a danger to your family." I stared at him. "Are you serious?" "They asked me to lie in court tomorrow, to say that you threatened me and that I was afraid of what you might do." "And you'll lie?" Connor shook his head. "I came to warn you and apologize. I knew something was wrong with them, the way they treated me, but I was too cowardly to speak out. You were 17. They are adults. I had to protect you." I hugged my little brother, realizing how much I missed him during this ordeal. "There's one more thing," Connor said. "I recorded their conversation about lying about the kidnapping. I thought you might need it." He played the audio file on his phone. My parents' voices were clear as they coached him on what false statements to make. "This is evidence of witness tampering. I told the FBI, they need to hear this. I know. That's why I brought this to you, and not them." The custody hearing the next morning was anticlimactic. Judge Morrison reviewed the evidence for less than 20 minutes before turning to my parents' attorney. Counselor, your clients are currently under federal investigation for charges of fraud, conspiracy, and drug-related offenses. The plaintiff's alleged mental incompetence appears to be the result of systematic drugging by those seeking custody. This motion is not only without merit, it is an insult to this court. He turned to me. Ms. Ashworth, you have demonstrated remarkable mental acuity in uncovering and documenting a complex criminal conspiracy. I find no evidence of mental incompetence. The motion is denied. My parents' attorney looked like he wanted to disappear into the ground. My parents weren't even there. They were too busy managing the media circus surrounding the fraud allegations. As I left court, reporters surrounded me with cameras and microphones. Ms. Ashworth, what's it like to out your own parents? What will you do with your inheritance? Are you planning to sue your husband? I ignored them all and climbed into Zara's car. One more week, I said as we drove away. One more week until I turn 23 and this will all be over. But I was wrong. It wasn't over yet. That afternoon, Agent Rodriguez called with disturbing news. Your parents have disappeared, she said. They didn't show up for a scheduled interview with the FBI this morning. Their lawyer says he can't reach them. What do you mean, disappeared? They withdrew a large sum of cash from their accounts yesterday and haven't been seen since. We have warrants for their arrest. Are they considered dangerous given their increasingly desperate behavior? Yes. You should consider taking precautions until we find them. I hired a private security firm and moved to a more secure hotel. But despite the precautions, I couldn't shake the feeling that something bad was coming. 2 days later, my instincts were proven correct. I was having breakfast in my hotel room when the phone rang. The voice on the other end was my father's, but he sounded different. Wild, unbalanced. You ruined everything, he said without preamble. Our business, our reputation, our family, everything. You ruined it all when you decided to steal from me. We gave you life. We raised you. We deserve something for it. You deserve prison time for drugging your own daughter. This isn't over. You think you're so smart, but you have no idea what we're capable of. Is that a threat? It's a promise. Enjoy your inheritance while you can. The line went dead. I immediately called Agent Rodriguez, who took the threat seriously. We're increasing security around you, she said, and we're tracking their phone. The call came from somewhere in the mountains outside the city. What could they be planning, given their mental state and desperation? Anything. We'll find them. The next few days passed in a haze of heightened security and constant vigilance. I rarely left my hotel room except for important meetings with lawyers and investigators. 3 days before my 23rd birthday, Helena Whitmore called with an urgent request. I need you to come to the office immediately, she said. There's been a change in your grandfather's case. I arrived with my bodyguard and found Miss Whitmore looking alarmed. I received a call this morning from someone claiming to represent your parents. She said they're demanding I hand over all the estate documents and claim they have legal title as Theodore's children, but they waived their rights when they filed for guardianship. Exactly. But they're threatening to challenge the clause in court. They claim the charitable clause is invalid because Theodore wasn't of sound mind when he added it. They've already tried that with a fake medical report. That's different. They claim they have witnesses who saw him confused when he made the final changes to his will. I sank into a chair. Can they really overturn the charitable clause? It will be difficult, but not impossible if they can produce credible witnesses. The problem is that litigation could delay your inheritance for years, even if they ultimately lose. What do you recommend? We'll continue with the original plan. On your 23rd birthday, you'll claim your inheritance. If they want to contest it, they'll have to do so from prison. 2 days before my birthday, the FBI finally located my parents. They were hiding in a remote mountain cabin with 2 men I didn't recognize. Corporate investigators, Agent Rodriguez explained. Your parents hired them to find evidence of your grandfather's supposed mental incompetence. Did they find anything? They found something, but I don't think it was what your parents were hoping for, she said, showing me photographs of the documents found in the cabin. These are your grandfather's medical records from his final months. The real ones, not the doctored report created by Dr. Vance. They show he was perfectly sane and competent until his death. So they actually found evidence that contradicted their own claims. Exactly. They were so desperate to find something incriminating that they didn't even bother to read what they found. What now? We'll arrest them tomorrow. The charges are extensive: fraud, conspiracy, witness tampering, forgery, drug offenses, and now your brother's kidnapping. Connor's kidnapping. They took him to the cabin against his will. He managed to call us from there yesterday. I felt a surge of protective rage toward my little brother. Is he okay? Physically, yes. Emotionally shaken, but he'll recover. He's been a huge help to our investigation. The day before my 23rd birthday, I watched on television as my parents were arrested at their mountain retreat. They looked exhausted and defeated as they were led away. Reporters were calling it the culmination of one of the most shocking inheritance fraud cases in state history. That evening, Connor called me from Child Protective Services. "I'm sorry," was the first thing he said. "I'm sorry I didn't stop them sooner." "You're 17, I replied. "None of this was your responsibility." "What happens to me now? You're coming to live with me. I've already started the custody papers." "Really? Really? We're a family. A real family. Not the toxic mess Mom and Dad created." "And what about college? You'll go to any college you want. Money is no longer an issue." On the morning of my 23rd birthday, I woke up with a strange feeling. After months of fighting over my inheritance, the moment itself seemed almost anticlimactic. Zara arrived with coffee and pastries. "Happy birthday, new multimillionaire," she said, smiling. "It doesn't feel real yet." "That will be when you see the Swiss bank account numbers." At noon, I met Helena Whitmore in her office for the official handover ceremony. She had prepared a formidable set of documents covering the art collection, real assets, corporate assets, and financial accounts. "The overall value has actually increased since our last valuation," she said. "The art has appreciated, and several patents for your grandfather's technology have been licensed for significant royalties." "How much in total?" 437 million. I sat in stunned silence. "There's one more thing, Ms. Whitmore said softly. "Your grandfather has recorded a video message to be played on your 23rd birthday." She turned on the television, and suddenly my grandfather appeared, sitting in his usual chair in the study. He looked exactly as I remembered. Kind eyes, a gentle smile, a perfectly ironed shirt. "My dear granddaughter," his recorded voice said, "if you are watching this, it means you have survived whatever schemes your parents devised to steal your inheritance. I am proud of you for being stronger than they expected." Tears began to stream down my face. "I know this path has been painful. Learning that your own parents would betray you for money is one of life's harshest lessons. But I hope you see this inheritance not as compensation for their betrayal, but as freedom from ever having to depend on someone who doesn't truly love you." He paused and seemed to look straight at me through the screen. "Money doesn't guarantee happiness, but it does guarantee choice. You can choose to travel the world or stay home. You can choose to start a business or pursue art. You can choose to help others or focus on yourself. Most importantly, you can choose who deserves your trust and love. Use this gift wisely, but don't let it burden you. Your worth is not measured by what you own. It's measured by how you treat others and how true you stay to yourself. I love you more than you'll ever know. Now go live the life you choose, not the one others choose for you." The video ended with him smiling and raising his glass of wine in a toast. I sat, sobbing for a few minutes while Miss Whitmore and Zara waited patiently. "Are you okay?" Zara finally asked. "I think so. This is just mind-boggling. What's the first thing you want to do with the money?" I thought for a moment. "Take care of Connor. Make sure he has everything he needs for college and beyond." And then I smiled through my tears. I have no idea, but for the first time in my life, it felt good. 3 months later, I was settling into my new life. I bought a beautiful house in the hills outside of town. Nothing too ostentatious, but comfortable and safe. Connor had moved in and was thriving at his new private school. Kieran was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. My parents got 8 years each. Dr. Vance got 3 years and lost his medical license forever. The media attention had mostly died down, though I still received the occasional interview request. I declined them all, Some stories didn't need repeating. One afternoon, while reviewing investment portfolios with my new financial advisor, I received an unexpected visitor. It was Emma, Kieran's sister, whom I barely knew. She looked nervous and uncomfortable as she sat in my living room. "I wanted to apologize," she said without preamble. "I knew there was something wrong with the way Kieran treated you, but I didn't say anything. You weren't responsible for his actions." "No, but I could have warned you. He's done things like this before. Targeted rich women, manipulated them. I should have spoken out." "Why didn't you?" "Because he's my brother, and I hoped he'd changed. That maybe he really loved you." "Did he ever?" Emma shook her head sadly. "I don't think Kieran is capable of loving anyone more than money." She stood up to leave, then turned. "As far as I know, I'm glad you exposed him. Perhaps prison will give him time to figure out who he wants to be after she left." I thought about forgiveness. I quickly forgave Connor because he was young and genuinely remorseful. I even forgave Dr. Vance to some extent because his cooperation helped solve the case. But I couldn't forgive my parents or Kieran. Some betrayals were too deep, too calculated. They saw me not as a daughter or a wife, but as a resource to exploit. That evening, Connor and I were making dinner when he asked the question that was on his mind. "Do you ever miss them, Mom and Dad?" I considered the question carefully. I miss the people I thought they were, but I don't miss the people they actually were. "Do you think they'll try to contact us when they get out of prison?" "Perhaps, but by then we'll have built our own lives. We won't need their approval or their love. What if I want to see them?" "Then it's your choice. But you'll never have to depend on them again." 6 months after my 23rd birthday, I made my first major philanthropic decision. I founded a foundation dedicated to helping young people in financial difficulties due to domestic violence. The idea came to me after reading letters from people who had heard my story. Dozens of young people wrote about how they were controlled through money, how their inheritance was stolen, or how they were forced into unwanted marriages for financial reasons. I hired a team of social workers, lawyers, and counselors to help people in similar situations. We provided legal assistance, financial support, and safe housing to those who needed help escaping toxic family situations. The foundation's first major success was helping a 19-year-old girl named Maya, who escaped an arranged marriage planned by her parents to form a business partnership. We provided her with legal representation, a college scholarship, and a safe place to live while she gained independence. Her letter of gratitude reminded me why I started the foundation. "You gave me the chance to choose my own life instead of having it chosen for me." A year after receiving my inheritance, I was invited to speak at a conference on domestic financial abuse. I'd avoided speaking publicly about my experience, but it felt important. Standing at the podium and looking out at the audience of social workers, lawyers, and survivors, I shared my story publicly for the first time. Domestic financial abuse, I began, is invisible to most people. We assume parents want the best for their children, that spouses love each other, that families protect their loved ones. But for some of us, family members are predators from whom we need protection. I shared the warning signs. Parents who control their adult children's finances, family members who insist on inappropriate marriages, relatives who isolate people from external support systems. "The hardest part isn't running away," I continued. "It's realizing that people who claim to love you are actually using you. It's grieving the loss of the family you thought you had while simultaneously building the life you deserve." After my speech, a young man approached me with tears in his eyes. "My grandmother is trying to force me to marry her friend's daughter to consolidate business interests," he said. "I thought I was trapped, but your story gives me hope." We connected him with the foundation's resources. That same day, 2 years after my 23rd birthday, I received a letter that changed my perspective on everything. It was from my mother, written from prison. "Dear daughter," it began. "I know you have no reason to believe anything I write, but I want you to know that I'm sorry." She explained that prison had given her time to process what she had done. She had been in therapy, working through her own childhood traumas and unhealthy relationship with money. "I won't excuse our behavior," she wrote, "but I want you to understand that my parents controlled me through money, just as I tried to control you. I thought I was protecting you from financial mistakes, but in reality, I was just continuing the cycle of abuse." She described her own experience of being married off at a young age to secure family business interests, having her inheritance stolen by relatives, and never learning to value herself as more than a financial asset. I was so focused on securing your financial future that I forgot about your emotional well-being. I thought if you had money, you'd be safe. I didn't realize that by taking away your choices, I was doing the opposite of what security meant. The letter ended with a plea. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it, but if you ever want to listen, I'd like to tell you about your great-grandmother, who started this cycle of financial abuse in our family. Perhaps understanding this story will help you heal from it. I put the letter aside and didn't respond for weeks. But eventually, curiosity got the better of me. I arranged a supervised visit to the prison. My mother looked older, grayer, and somehow smaller than I remembered. She seemed genuinely shocked that I had come. I wasn't sure you wanted to see me, she said. I'm not sure either, but I want to understand. She told me about my great-grandmother, a woman who survived the Great Depression by manipulating her children's marriages and inheritances. How this trauma affected my grandmother, who controlled my mother the same way my mother tried to control me. It was all about survival, she explained. In my family, love was measured by financial security. If you didn't provide for someone's financial future, you didn't really love them. But you were ruining mine, not providing for it. I see that now. But at the time, I genuinely believed I was protecting you from the same mistakes I'd made. What mistakes? Trusting the wrong people, being too generous, not understanding the value of money. I shook my head. Those aren't mistakes. They're human qualities. I know that now. We talked for 2 hours. I hadn't forgiven her. It would take much longer if it ever happened. But I began to understand her. Over the next year, I visited her a few more times. Slowly, I began to see glimpses of the mother I thought I had as a child, before greed and fear consumed her. During one of those visits, she asked about Connor. He's thriving, I said. He's studying engineering at Stanford now. He wants to develop renewable energy technologies, and he's happy. Very happy. He has friends, hobbies, a girlfriend he adores. He lives the life of a normal college student without financial pressure, without any pressure. He knows the money is there if he needs it, but he works part-time and lives in ordinary dorms. He wants to earn his own. My mother smiled sadly. That's what I should have wanted for both of you. 3 years after receiving the inheritance, I made a decision that surprised everyone. I got married. His name was David, and he was a public defender I met through the foundation. He had no money, no connections, and no interest in my wealth other than to ensure it was put to good use. You're not worried about prenuptial agreements and gold diggers? Zara asked when I told her about the engagement. David didn't even know about my inheritance until our 5th date, I replied. And when I told him, his first reaction was to ask how much of it I was going to give away. That's how you know he's the one. The wedding was small and intimate. Just Connor, Zara, a few close friends, and David's family. No media, no big gown, no pharmaceutical executives looking for business opportunities. As we exchanged vows in the garden of my home, I reflected on how different this marriage was from the one I had run away from. This one was my choice. David was my choice. The life we build together will be ours. During the reception, Connor gave a speech that moved everyone to tears. My sister taught me that family isn't about blood or money, he said. It's about people who support your dreams, not try to control them. People who celebrate your successes, not try to steal them. People who love you for who you are, not for what you can give them. He raised his glass to David and my sister. May your marriage be everything theirs wasn't. 4 years after receiving the inheritance, I received another letter from prison, this time from my father. Unlike my mother's letter, his wasn't apologetic. It was bitter, accusatory, and full of justifications for his behavior. He accused me of ruining the family business, claimed I was ungrateful for everything they gave me, and suggested I owed them compensation for raising me. You have more money than you could spend in 10 lifetimes, he wrote. The last thing you could do is help the parents who gave you life. I showed the letter to my therapist, Dr. Sarah Kim, whom I'd been seeing regularly since I inherited my inheritance. How does this make you feel? She asked. Sad, not because of him, but because of the relationship we never had. He still sees me as a resource, not as his daughter. Do you want to respond? No, I can't say anything that would make him understand where he went wrong. He's not interested in accountability, only in having access to my money again. And you're okay with that? I'm okay with protecting myself from it. 5 years after my 23rd birthday, the foundation had helped over 300 people escape domestic financial abuse. We'd expanded to include educational programs, legal counseling, and emergency housing assistance. Maya, the girl we helped escape an arranged marriage, was now working as a counselor for the foundation while finishing her social work degree. You changed my life, she told me during our annual staff meeting. You changed your life, I replied. I just gave you the tools. No, you gave me something more important than tools. You gave me permission to value my own happiness above the expectations of others. That phrase stayed with me. Permission to value my own happiness. It was something I never had as a child, something I had to learn to give myself. 6 years later, David and I welcomed our first child, a daughter we named Hope. As I held her in the hospital, I promised her that she would never be treated as a commodity or a business investment. She would make her own decisions. I whispered to David about her career, her relationships, her life. We would support whatever makes her happy, even if she wanted to give her entire inheritance to save whales, David asked with a smile. Especially then, Connor, now a successful engineer working on solar panel technology, came to visit his new niece. He'd graduated from Stanford debt-free and was living in his own apartment, completely financially independent. She's beautiful, he said, holding Hope carefully, and she's lucky she'll grow up knowing she's valued for who she is, not for what she owns. That's the plan. Do you think Mom and Dad will ever get to see her? That was the question I was considering. My mother will be eligible for parole in 2 years. My father will be out in 4. Maybe Mom someday if she keeps making progress in therapy, but not Dad. Some risks aren't worth it. 7 years after receiving the inheritance, I received news of Dr. Vance's death from a heart attack while serving a prison sentence. I felt conflicted about his death. Anger for what he did to me, but also sadness for a man who was clearly struggling with his conscience. His daughter contacted me to arrange a meeting. She wanted to apologize for her father's actions and return what he had asked her to give me. We met at a coffee shop downtown. She was a doctor herself, working in pediatric oncology. My father had been consumed by guilt in his final years, she told me. He knew he had done something unforgivable to you, but he wanted you to have this. She handed me a small wooden box. Inside was a locket that had belonged to my grandmother, my grandfather's first wife, who died when my mother was young. He said my grandfather had given it to him for safekeeping with instructions to pass it on to you someday. He never found the right opportunity, but he didn't want it lost. Inside the locket was a photo of my grandmother and a small note from my great-granddaughter, who I hoped would be braver than me. I wore the locket to Nadezhda's first birthday, feeling a connection to the grandmother I never knew, but who seemed to understand the importance of courage. 8 years after my 23rd birthday, my mother was granted parole. She called to ask if she could see me and meet her granddaughter. I agreed to a supervised meeting at the foundation's office with Connor present. She looked fragile and older than her years, but her eyes were different, clearer, more sincere than I remembered. I don't expect forgiveness, she said immediately. I just wanted to see you happy. I'm happy. And Connor, too. Successful, independent, and happy. She nodded, tears in her eyes. That's all I really wanted for both of you. I just went down the wrong path. She asked to see photos of Nadezhda, and I showed her several on my phone. She's beautiful. Does she know about me? She knows she has a grandmother who made serious mistakes but is trying to fix them. When she's older, I'll let her decide for herself if she wants a relationship with you. That's more than I deserve. It's not about what you deserve. It's about giving Nadezhda the choice to learn about her family history and decide what role, if any, you will play in her life. We met several more times in the following months. My mother was clearly working hard to understand and atone for her actions. She had completed several therapeutic programs in prison and worked for a nonprofit that helped women re-enter society after incarceration. But trust is something that will take years to rebuild, if it's even possible. I published a book about my experience. Choosing Freedom, Breaking the Cycles of Family Financial Abuse became a bestseller and brought national attention to an often ignored form of domestic violence. I donated all proceeds to the foundation and used the book tour as an opportunity to speak out about family financial control and manipulation. During a television interview, the host asked if I ever regretted outing my parents. "I regret that it was necessary," I replied. "I regret that they made the choice that forced me to choose between my safety and my family, but I don't regret standing up for myself." What would you say to someone in a similar situation now? Your life is yours. Your choices are yours. Your happiness is yours. Anyone who tries to control these things through money or manipulation doesn't love you. They're using you. And if they claim to do it out of love, love doesn't require you to sacrifice your autonomy. Love doesn't require you to accept violence. Love supports your choices, even when they differ from what others would choose. 10 years after my 23rd birthday, I stood in the same church where I faked amnesia. But this time, I was there for Connor's wedding to his college girlfriend, Arya. Watching them exchange vows they wrote themselves, I marveled at how different his experience was from mine. No arranged marriage, no family pressure, no hidden agenda. Just two people who had freely chosen each other. During his speech at the reception, Connor thanked me for showing him what healthy family relationships look like. "My sister taught me that family members should want you to be happy, not to obey. He said they should celebrate your successes, not try to steal them. That they should support your dreams, not try to control them." He looked at me with tears in his eyes. She had broken a cycle of abuse that had lasted for generations in our family. Thanks to her courage, my children will grow up knowing they are valued for who they are, not for what they can give to others. Watching Nadezhda, now 3, dancing with her new aunt Arya, I felt a deep sense of accomplishment. The cycle had truly been broken. Nadezhda would grow up in a family that valued her well-being above financial gain, her happiness above others' expectations, her autonomy above their control. That evening, David and I put Nadezhda to bed and sat on the porch, looking out over the garden we'd built together. "Any regrets?" he asked, the question he'd asked on previous anniversaries of receiving my inheritance. "None," I answered, and for the first time, I said it with complete sincerity. I had lost the family I thought I had, but I had gained something far more precious. The family I chose, the life I built, and the knowledge that I was strong enough to protect them both. My grandfather was right in his final video message. The inheritance wasn't about money. It was about freedom. The freedom to choose who deserves my love, who deserves my trust, and how I want to live my life. Sitting there with my husband and daughter in the safety of our home, I realized that the most important thing I inherited wasn't money, or property, or art. It was the understanding that I deserved to be loved for who I am, not for what I could give to others. And that knowledge, more than any amount of money, truly freed me.